What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. My name is Nick. I talk all about trading and investing, and today we are talking about candlestick patterns. Now, well, candlesticks, but also just generically, like what candlesticks can actually tell you about the markets. Now, if you're very new to trading, candlesticks are those things on your chart that basically indicate whether the price is going up or down or sideways. And there's a lot of information that we can actually pick out from looking at candles, the color, the wicks, the direction, any sort of rejection that the market is showing us. And there's a whole bunch more that we can try and create profitable scenarios using this information. So stay tuned. We're going to talk all about this right now. All right, guys, so before we get too far in the video, do me a favor. If you're new to my channel, subscribe for more content. I know a lot of you guys who watch this are not actually subscribed, but if you do subscribe, you're going to get promoted to all sorts of good content that is completely free and down to earth, realistic stuff. There's a whole lot of hype out there, but on this channel, we are not about the hype. We're not about the Lamborghinis. We're not about all that stuff. Let's learn about trading. Let's talk about trading and actually all improve. I'm still improving every single day, just like everybody else. True traders are not arrogant. They're not egotistical. They understand that if you do have an ego, the market's going to go ahead and smoothen that out for you, if you will. I've had it done to me, and I'm sure some of you guys have experienced the same thing. So when we're talking about candlesticks, we're talking about, again, those fancy things on the charts. And what we can do is we can talk about some scenarios and some ideas that we can collect from the readings of a candlestick. Let's start with a really basic one, just for example. If we have 3 green candles moving to the upside, what does that actually tell us about a market? Well, obviously, we could just use a line chart and understand that, well, technically we went from this level here, right? And then we ended up right here. So the price just went right there. But there's more to this. If we know that the market basically made a move from here to here, why not just have a line chart? Well, the candles, again, they're there for a reason. They have more significance than just a simple, the price moved from A to B, right? The price or the candles here tell us more. They give us more information, and they kind of separate out this price movement into more bits and pieces that we as traders can use to our advantage. If it's there, you might as well use it. So if we have 3 green bars, what that tells us is that there was some pretty decisive movement. Now, what if we did this same scenario and we said, okay, well, price went to A to B, and we didn't use candles, but instead we used, we still used just a line chart. Well, we might miss out something like this, right? Which tells us that the price went to a certain point. But if we look at this, okay, let me color in my stuff. Red, 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 and then we had some green, and we ended up looking at this movement here. This is a different story if we actually say that Model 1 and Model 2. Model 2 is actually different than Model 1. And there's a lot of information. Oh, I just realized you guys are a little bit off the screen there. Let me pull that over. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so if we're looking at this Model 1 and Model 2 scenario, Model 1 is different. We had strong conviction the whole way right up to from point A to point B. But in Model 2, we went up, we went down a little bit, we went up, went down a little bit, we went up. And this is 2 different market environments. This market environment is much more trendy. It's much more decisive than market environment number 2. And that is why just using a line from A to B is not as interesting to me as using candlesticks, because they tell us more what the price is up to. Now, again, as price action traders, why this is significant is because we are using price action to try and determine what market participants are actually thinking. The price that we see is a reflection of market participants buying and selling. And when we see it in candles, we can see more information. So now that we have that out of the way, now we understand why candles are important from the get-go, let's talk about some ways that we can actually use it. So let me slide this back over. Okay, and let's talk about how we can actually use it. Okay, so if we have candles that are moving 3 in a row to the upside, The reason that that is kind of significant is it tells us that this market is moving with a lot of strength. Let's just pretend those are beautiful candles and I'm not just lazy and not making them. If we have candles like this, right, this tells us that the market itself is very, very strong, and we can use that to our advantage, because a lot of times markets that are trending have a lot of conviction and very well might want to continue in that direction. However, if we see something like this and then we come back down a little bit and then we move up further, right, well, there's some indecisiveness and that trend might not be as strong. The reason that this is significant to me is that if I see candles moving up with strong conviction, I am more interested in buying that pullback. So if price does decide to, we'll use candles here again, if price does decide to start pulling back here, then that conviction, I'm interested in trying to jump in long to see if that can continue. Okay. And that right there is a starting understanding of just the colors of candles. Having multiple green candles in a row tells me that the trend overall is very strong to the upside. Having multiple red candles in a row tells me that we have a strong bearish trend. And here's another thing that we can do. If we were to look at a lot of candles, right, and we were to look at the information on the chart based on, let me just draw out some scenarios, for example. If we were to look at a chart that looks kind of like this, this is a market in which I'm very interested in being a seller of, because let's look at some things here. Let's look at the red candles first. Notice that the red candles are strong and pushing lower for the most part pretty decisively. Okay. So we have strong bearish candles. Okay. And let's look at the blue candles for a moment and look at them. Okay. We have weak bullish candles. What this tells us is that for now, sellers are heavily in control of a market. And generally speaking, this is where we get the concept of the trend is your friend. For me, when I see a market is strong on the bearish side, any sort of pullback, let's say we started to see another one, right? That is a sell to me still, because again, the broader environment is a strong bear market. Okay. And so that's from the body standpoint, what we can learn from candlesticks. So if we have weak pullbacks in the counter trend and strong dominant energy on the main trend or the strong trend, that to me gives me a bearish bias. Okay. So that's how we can read the candle color. Now, some people have their candles as green, some people have them red, blue, there's all different colors, but whatever you use, the point is when a dominant candle is overwhelmingly one color, when the dominant trend is one color, that is a big signal to me to look for continuation. So let's look here. Let's talk about part 2 to this, which is basically when we have rejection candles. Okay. So let's say we do have that scenario where we do have, actually, let me start over here. Let's say we have more blue candles and we're moving higher, right? We've got strong movements, but then we see something like this. Okay. Okay. So let's say that at the start of this trend, what do we have? We have some pretty strong candles. Notice that all of them are blue, right? All of them are bullish, but the latter or the later on candles are weaker than those strong initial candles. And in fact, we are seeing a really interesting part right here, which is the wick. And big wicks like this, a lot of times they do indicate that, okay, well, actually we can 100% for sure know what they indicate in this candle right here. It tells us that price came up, but was shot back down really hard, right? And I don't know if you guys have ever been rejected in a relationship. I'm sure a lot of you guys have, or, most of us have. It's not a fun feeling. And a lot of times there's a follow through, or there's like a down period afterwards, right? So if you shoot your shot with somebody you like and they say, I'm not really interested, and we get a little no thanks, it puts us in it not only initially rejects us, but it also has some follow through, right? It has some dang it, I keep messing this up. You guys can see I wrote no thanks over here. But the point is, right, we have the rejection initially, but then we have some follow through a lot of the times. And that is where things get interesting here when we get wicks at the top of a trend that is showing weakness. This is a good example of a reversal sort of scenario that I would like to look for short opportunities in, especially if we're looking at a dominant downtrend. So for example, let's see if we can draw this out. Let's say we have a strong move to the downside, right? We've got all the candles here. They're looking pretty bearish, but we're looking for any sort of pullback to try and get involved. A lot of you guys, I'm sure, like to trade pullbacks. That's definitely one of my favorite ways to trade, is to look for a weak pullback. Well, one thing that we could add to our pullback search is, let's say we see some initial spike to the upside, but then towards the top point of this move, we get some nice rejection. This to me is double or 2 times more interesting to me, because we have a dominant downtrend, right? Overall trend equals down. And we're seeing on the counter trend, the CT, we're seeing rejection or a reversal, okay? And this is kind of cool because, okay, if we have the overall trend is down and we have rejection on this counter trend that's attempting to rise, that could lead to some bigger push lower, okay? And that to me is one of my favorite sort of trading setups, is looking for a pullback that has some sort of weakness in it and looking to go short and continue it, right? So these are all things that we can do just by looking at the candles and looking for signs of rejection, looking for the overall trend of a market using the dominant color. So I hope this makes sense. These are just some ways that I like to read candlestick patterns and candlestick colors. If this has been helpful to you, please consider subscribing and giving this video a like down below. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you back in the next one.